I knew something was off the second the needle hit my vein. Cold light, steel table, my body locked while shadows crawled across the ceiling. Through the blur, Dr. Crow's voice cut through. "Give his wife this envelope. Don't let him see it." My heart turned to ice. I cracked my eyes open just enough to see Linda, my wife, take it, open it, and smile. Not the smile of love, the smile of someone who's already won. That's when I knew. This wasn't about healing me. It was about erasing me. Think you'd see it coming? Think again. Stay tuned. This story bleeds deep. I came to with the Camry shuddering over frozen pavement, heater coughing that same vanilla scent, and something new beneath it. Sharper, younger, the kind of perfume you wear when you're hoping someone will notice. Snow covered everything, fields, ditches, fences, all the colors stripped from the world. Linda kept both hands at 10 and 2, her phone sitting in her lap like it belonged there. It never used to. 38 years together, I knew her rhythms like my own pulse. Phone in purse, hum in her throat, ring on her finger tapping the wheel. But today, quiet. No hum, no tap. "Dr. Crow seems competent," she said, soft around his name like it meant more than it should. The phone buzzed. Once, twice. Each time her eyes darted down and back up to the road. No words followed. Just that perfume filling the space between us. I turned my head to the window, watched the snow spin in the wind. All white, all quiet. The kind of quiet that holds secrets. And that's when it hit me. Not a thought, more like a gut punch. This wasn't nerves after surgery. This was a woman moving to a rhythm I didn't know. She'd changed her habits. And habits don't change without reason. I planned to find that reason, no matter how ugly it was. But I had no idea the ugliness had already started counting down from 40,000. That night, the house sounded wrong. Too neat. Too calm. The kind of silence that makes you think of open graves. Linda moved around the kitchen like nothing had changed. Coffee brewing, cabinets opening, that damn new perfume trailing behind her like a lie with legs. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, checking the bank app. Habit. Just a routine glance. Then the number hit me like a nail gun to the chest. $40,000. Gone. I blinked, refreshed. Blinked again. Still gone. Money doesn't just vanish. Not after a lifetime of counting every dime to keep this farm breathing. I stared at her reflection in the window. Steam from her mug blurred her face like a ghost I used to know. She asked if I wanted more sugar. I said no. My voice cracked anyway. Another refresh. Same answer. 40,000 lighter. The coffee turned sour in my mouth, like it knew what I was about to say. I stood up, walked to the kitchen doorway. "Where did $40,000 go, Linda?" Her hand froze halfway to the counter. The hum of the refrigerator filled the gap between us, cold and steady. She didn't answer, not right away. But I saw it, the flicker in her eyes. Not guilt, preparation. And that's when I realized, whatever this was, she'd been rehearsing it. And I was already a step too late. The clinic looked too clean to be honest, glass and steel catching the pale winter light, the kind of place built to impress investors, not heal people. The receptionist smiled at me the way you smile when your boss is watching. Plastic, rehearsed, nothing behind it. "Mr. Whitaker, Dr. Crow will see you shortly." The waiting room smelled like bleach trying to hide something older. Every surface gleamed, but the air had a weight to it, like grief wearing perfume. When the nurse led me down the hall, my boots squeaked on the tile. That sound echoed too long. The farther we walked, the colder it got, like we were moving away from the living. Crow's office door was cracked. I glanced in. On the wall behind his desk hung a county map, big, laminated, covered in red pins. 15, maybe 20 of them, scattered across farm country like a disease spreading by touch. "Lot of development happening around here," I said. He smiled. "Progress never stops, Mr. Whitaker." His hand landed on my shoulder, cool, precise, professional. But the chill sank deeper than skin. Each pin marked a name I knew. Hendricks, Morrison, Vickers, families who'd sold their land, buried their husbands, moved away. The room started to hum, the kind of sound that crawls into your bones and stays there. That's when it hit me. Those red pins weren't progress. They were graves with paperwork, and I was next in line. I left that clinic with one thought burning hotter than fear. Someone had been buying out men like me, right before they disappeared. That night, the fire popped in the hearth, throwing soft light on the living room walls. It should have felt warm. It didn't. The trash can still held yesterday's garbage. I pulled the bag out, setting it on the floor, not sure what I was looking for, until I saw it. An envelope. First Covenant Bank. Our name in bold black letters. The paper smelled faintly of coffee and smoke. My hands shook as I read. Formal notice of foreclosure. Payment 3 months past due. Total owed, $47,000. 47. Almost the same number I'd found missing from our account. I read it again, slower, each word sinking like a nail. If payment is not received by March 15th, foreclosure proceedings will begin within 90 days. 90 days. 3 months to lose everything my father built with his bare hands. The sound of Linda's footsteps crept down the stairs, soft, measured, careful. The way you walk when you don't want to be heard. I slid the letter into my jacket pocket just before she stepped into the room. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. "Just thinking," I said. She smiled that tired smile again. "Try not to worry so much." But worry wasn't the word for it. It was something colder, something that tasted like betrayal wrapped in routine. The fire cracked. Shadows danced across the family photos on the mantel, faces of men who'd fought to keep this land. Someone had stopped paying the mortgage, someone with access to the joint account, and that someone was sleeping under my roof. The countdown had started, 90 days till the farm, and maybe me, were both gone for good. Sleep wouldn't come that night. The house spoke in old sounds, wood stretching, pipes sighing, wind sneaking through the eaves like it had secrets to share. I sat in the dark living room with the foreclosure letter on my lap, the paper soft now from being read too many times. Next to me, on the mantel, sat the old photo from Vietnam, me and Earl Jennings, 22 years old, mud up to our knees, grinning like we'd already lived through hell. My hands found the Zippo he'd given me the day we shipped home. It still worked. The flame jumped, small and sure, cutting through the dark. I didn't think. I just called him. 2 rings and his gravel voice came through, same as always. "Merle?" "It's Frank." He didn't ask why I was calling at midnight. He didn't have to. "I think my wife's in something deep," I said. "Something tied to that doctor." A long pause, just the sound of him lighting a cigarette. Then, "You remember Da Nang, when Rodriguez got hit?" "Yeah. You didn't panic then. Don't panic now. This is the same thing, different terrain." His words dropped heavy, like the click of a safety being switched off. "This is a battlefield, Frank, just not the kind with bullets." The line went quiet again, but I could hear him moving, getting dressed maybe. "Put on coffee," he said finally. "I'll be there before sunrise." And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel alone. By dawn, Earl's kitchen smelled like bacon grease and burnt coffee, the kind that sits on the burner too long but still tastes like comfort. He had papers spread across the table, yellow legal pads filled with names, numbers, arrows. "Been digging since your call," he said, pushing a stack toward me. "Figured I'd start with county records. Crow's name pops up a lot." I looked at the pages, familiar names, familiar land. Morrison, Hendricks, Vickers, farms that had been in families for generations, all sold within the last few years. All to the same LLC, Redfield Development Group. The owner on file? Dr. Randall Crow. Earl leaned back, crossed his arms. 15 properties, all within a 20-mile stretch, all former patients. I traced a finger down the list, stopping at each red mark beside a dead man's name. "They sold after they got sick?" "After procedures," Earl said. "Minor ones, checkups, surgeries. Then they either died or sold out. Widows moved off. Crow bought cheap through shell companies." The coffee sat untouched between us, gone cold. "He's not just your doctor, Frank," Earl said. "He's a goddamn undertaker with a license." The list blurred in my hands, not from the print, but from the weight of it. The pattern too neat, too clean. 15 farms, I said quietly. 15 lives. Earl nodded. And one more on deck. I didn't ask who he meant. I already knew. Whatever this was, it wasn't just betrayal, it was a harvest. And my land was next in line. When I went back for my follow-up, the place looked the same. Too clean, too bright, the kind of shine that hides things. Nurse Torres met me at the counter, eyes red-rimmed, hands trembling as she passed the clipboard. Her smile didn't reach her face. "Just sign here, Mr. Whitaker," she said, voice low, clipped. Her pen shook when she handed it over. I noticed she kept glancing at the ceiling, one of those little black domes that wasn't decoration. A camera. I signed slow. "Everything all right, Miss Torres?" She froze for half a second, eyes darting to the hall, then to the closed office door behind her. "Dr. Crow will be right with you." The way she said his name, it was fear wearing politeness. As she turned to leave, the papers slipped slightly in her hand. I caught the corner of one, post-operative complications. My name on top. Her fingers snatched it back, face pale. "Be careful, Mr. Whitaker," she whispered. "Just be careful." Then she was gone. The door shut fast, no footsteps afterward. I sat alone, the hum of the fluorescent light crawling through my skull. A folder somewhere in this building said I had complications. I didn't. That wasn't a mistake. That was insurance. On me. And for the first time, I wondered if Crow's patients ever lived long enough to read theirs. The house smelled like coffee and cinnamon when I got home. Linda in her element, apron tied neat, pretending we were still a couple that talked about weather and grocery sales. She smiled when I came in, too bright, too rehearsed. "You look tired. How was the checkup?" "Fine," I said. "He says I'm healing." She nodded, stirring the pot like the rhythm could drown the tension. "I told you, nothing to worry about." I watched the spoon circle, her reflection warped in the steel. "You been paying the mortgage?" She laughed softly, the kind of sound that makes you feel foolish. "Frank, we talked about this. You must have forgotten." The words hit like a slap made of honey. Forgotten. That was her new angle, my mind going soft, my memory slipping. "Maybe you should write things down," she said gently, turning off the burner. "Just to keep track." Outside, the wind pushed against the kitchen windows, a steady moan through the loose frame. A shadow crossed the porch light, someone passing or watching. She set a cup in front of me, hand brushing mine. Warm, controlled. When I looked up, I caught it in her eyes. Not love, not anger, but pity. The kind you save for someone who's already lost. And that was worse than hate. Somewhere outside, the wind rattled the latch I'd been meaning to fix. Inside, my world started to come apart. Quietly, politely, like good manners dying slow. The phone rang after dark, the old landline crackling like it remembered better years. Tom's voice came through, smooth, careful, the way a man talks when he's already picked a side. "Mom says you've been forgetting things, Dad," he started. "She's worried. Said you accused her of stealing." "I didn't accuse," I said. "I asked." He sighed, the kind of sigh you learn in corporate boardrooms. Measured, tired, final. "Dad, this paranoia, it's not you. Maybe we should talk to someone, a doctor or a lawyer, someone who can help manage things before they get worse." Manage things? Financial guardianship. Temporary. Just until you get back on your feet. My hand tightened around the receiver until the plastic creaked. "Your mother's been telling you stories, son." "Dad, she's scared. You're angry all the time, forgetting bills." "The bills are paid," I snapped, "except the ones she stopped paying." He went quiet, then, "You sound just like Grandpa did near the end. I don't want to lose you the same way." That cut deeper than any lie. The silence stretched long enough to hear the clock ticking behind me, counting out every word we didn't say. Then he said it, soft but deadly. "I'm siding with Mom on this. I think she's right." The call dropped into static. I sat there listening to the hum, realizing the worst part wasn't losing trust. It was losing your own blood to someone else's story. Somewhere out there, my son was helping them bury me alive, one signature at a time. It was the text from Marcy Finn that pulled me back from the edge. "Frank, check your water rights permit." Someone filed an objection. I stared at the message like it was in another language. Water rights. Without them, my farm was just dirt waiting to die. I called her. She picked up on the first ring. Frank, listen to me. The renewal's due March 31st. Somebody filed paperwork claiming co-owner dispute. It's signed, notarized, looked official. Who signed it? A pause, heavy enough to fill the room. Linda, notarized by Dr. Crow's receptionist. My stomach turned cold. She continued, voice dropping to a whisper. If it goes through, the county freezes your irrigation permit. Land value drops by half. You'll never get it back. I gripped the phone tighter. You can stop it? Not without proof the signature's forged, or unless the co-owner withdraws the claim. That won't happen. No, she said. I didn't think so either. Through the window, the winter light slanted across the fields, bare, brittle, waiting. The wind carried the sound of the barn door banging loose again. I should have fixed it. But this was bigger than rust or hinges. 90 days. That letter. Now this. Every clock in my life ticking toward March. They weren't stealing my money anymore. They were gutting the land itself. And when you take a man's water, you're not just taking his farm, you're taking his future. The next morning, I waited until Linda left for town before moving. The house creaked like it was warning me not to. Upstairs, the bedroom still smelled faintly of her perfume. Floral, sweet, too clean for truth. I pulled down the old shoebox from the top shelf of her closet. Dust puffed out like the room exhaled. Inside were papers, bank statements, withdrawal slips, receipts, all stamped Wells Fargo. Her name only. My pulse started climbing. I laid each sheet out on the bed, lining them like tombstones. 18 months worth. Every withdrawal just under $10,000. $9,800. $9,700, $9,950. Too precise to be coincidence. She knew what she was doing, just small enough to dodge federal reporting. The numbers added up fast. 47,000. The same 47 gone from our account. I pressed a hand against the bedspread to steady myself. Every sheet of paper whispered the same story. Linda had been bleeding the life out of the farm, one small transaction at a time. And all of it, every cent, hidden here, above my head, while I slept beside her. My heart drummed against my ribs. The woman I'd built a life with wasn't saving us. She was stockpiling an exit. I put everything back the way it was, careful, quiet, pretending nothing had changed. But something had, me. Trust isn't lost in one blow. It's bled out, one deposit at a time. That night I went back to her closet. Not for the papers this time. There was something else. A faint light blinking from the corner of the shoebox. A burner phone. Cheap, plastic, nearly dead. I powered it on. The screen lit weak, flickering like it didn't want to be seen. One contact. The letter R. Messages scrolled up, cold and deliberate. R. We need to finalize before March. D. He's getting suspicious. R. Then make him look unstable. My mouth went dry. I scrolled further. Dozens of texts back and forth like blueprints for a slow death. R. Keep notes. Record outbursts. If he talks to a lawyer, we'll handle it. D. He's checking the accounts. R. Good. Let him. Every accusation helps us. They were building a story of confusion, anger, decline, a paper trail of madness. My madness. The battery icon blinked red. 1%. I snapped photos of the screen, hands shaking, heart pounding so hard I thought the phone would pick it up through the mic. The last message came from him, time-stamped 2 days ago. R. Make sure he doesn't see the envelope. The same words I'd heard in that operating room. Then the screen went black, and I understood it all. The surgery, the smiles, the careful words. It wasn't paranoia. It was premeditation. They weren't just taking my land. They were erasing the man who owned it. Reverend Moss's house smelled like old books and lemon polish, the kind of scent that carried half a century of sermons and sins. He answered the door in his slippers, hair sticking up like he'd been arguing with sleep. "Frank," he said, "you look like hell. Come in." We sat in his study, the one that faced the churchyard. Through the window, I could see the headstones glinting under a thin coat of frost. My father's, my mother's, names carved into stone. waiting to remind me that truth outlives everything but memory. I told him everything. The surgery, the envelope, the missing money, the burner phone. He didn't interrupt, just folded his hands on the desk and listened while the coffee pot sputtered behind him, filling the room with that burnt, bitter smell only church coffee has. When I finished, he stayed quiet long enough for the bell outside to start ringing the hour. The sound hung between us like judgment. "Frank," he said finally, voice low, "you're asking me to believe your wife and your doctor are conspiring to ruin you. They already are." He rubbed his chin, eyes narrowing. "Then bring me proof. Not suspicion. Proof." His tone wasn't cruel. It was careful, the kind of care that hurts worse than disbelief. "I've known you 30 years, he said. "But I've known Linda too. You both deserve the truth, whichever way it cuts." I nodded, stood to leave. Outside, the church bell echoed one last time, fading into the cold. I'd gone looking for faith and found a trial instead. Even the righteous wanted evidence. The Sunday potluck at First Baptist used to be the safest place in town. This time, it felt like walking into a courtroom where everyone already knew the verdict. The fellowship hall smelled of casseroles and burnt coffee. Conversations dropped to whispers when I walked in, then started again, softer, sharper. Words like paranoid and poor Linda floated through the noise. Dr. Crow stood near the punch table, all polished smiles and polished shoes. People patted his back, thanked him for all he does for the community. Linda stood beside him, laughing at something he said, her hand brushing his sleeve like it belonged there. I filled a plate I wouldn't eat and found a seat in the corner. The murmurs followed me like smoke. That's when she appeared. A woman with gray hair pulled tight and eyes that didn't flinch. She set down her coffee, leaned in. "Mr. Whitaker?" "Yes, ma'am." "Julia Vickers." Her voice was steady, her hand not. "My husband Bill sold his farm to Dr. Crow 3 years ago. He died 2 weeks later." My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. "I think we need to talk," she said, "about complications." The room around us blurred, voices fading into background hum. Behind her, Linda laughed again, soft, sweet, rehearsed. Crow caught my eye across the room and smiled the kind of smile that says, "You can't touch me." But Julia's eyes told a different story, one carved from loss and quiet rage. For the first time, I realized I wasn't the only ghost in Crow's harvest. There were others, and one of them had just found her voice. Julia's hands trembled as she spread the folders across my kitchen table. Manila paper, coffee stains, the smell of ink and something older, fear that had dried years ago. "These are copies," she said. "The originals are locked at the county office, but I made these before Bill passed." I opened the first file. Post-operative reports. Same handwriting, same phrasing, same doctor. Complications. Organ failure. Patient deceased. Bill Vickers had gone in for a gallbladder removal. 2 days later, he was in the ground. Each file told the same story. Small procedure, sudden death, quick sale. All the land sold to Crow's shell companies for pennies on the dollar. But the signatures, those were the same too. Crow's sharp, practiced scrawl. The same notary every time, his own receptionist. Julia's voice cracked. "They said it was natural." Heart gave out. "But he was strong, Frank. Stronger than most men his age. He was fine." I looked at the line where the death was marked. Natural causes. I'd seen that phrase in too many obituaries lately. Men I'd known all my life. Farmers, veterans, fathers. "Every one of them," she whispered, "died right after seeing him." My stomach tightened. The folder edges cut against my fingers. "The deaths look clean," I said. She nodded, eyes gone flat. "Clean. Like they planned it that way." Her voice turned to steel. "The kind of death that looks natural, because someone made it that way." And in that moment, I realized Crow wasn't a doctor anymore. He was an artist, painting death to look like mercy. By the time I called Earl, my pulse was drumming like it used to on patrol in the jungle. He answered on the first ring. "You find something?" "Yeah," I said. "I found hell on paper." Within an hour, we were sitting in his garage, engine grease on the floor, space heater buzzing like an angry wasp. Earl laid out his phone, speaker on, calling Sheriff Marcus Hale, a man we both trusted once. Marcus picked up, voice deep and even. "Jennings, Whitaker, long time." Earl didn't waste words. "You ever look into Dr. Crow?" A pause. Too long. "That was years ago," Marcus said. "Old complaints, all dismissed." "Why?" I asked. Static filled the line, then Marcus lowered his voice. "You didn't hear it from me, but the review board killed it. Said there wasn't enough evidence." Earl frowned. "Board's supposed to be neutral." Marcus laughed without humor. "Neutral? Crow's wife chairs the damn thing." That landed like a shovel to the gut. "So everyone's in on it?" I asked. "Developers, banks, county council," Marcus said. "Crow's got hands in all of it. He builds clinics on the same land he buys from the dead. You understand me?" The heater clicked off. The silence that followed was heavy, electric. Earl leaned forward, eyes hard. "We're not letting this one slide, Marcus." "Be careful," the sheriff said quietly. "Folks who push this man too hard don't stay lucky for long." The line went dead. Earl and I just sat there, staring at the dark phone between us. It wasn't just Crow anymore. It was the whole damn town, feeding off the dead while pretending to pray for them. The storm came hard that night, wind screaming through the trees, rain slamming the windows like it wanted in. The lights flickered, caught, then dimmed to a weak orange glow. It felt like the whole house was breathing with the storm, waiting for something to give. The phone buzzed once, twice, before the signal started dying. I caught just enough of the email header to feel the punch. Notice of legal action, Dr. Randall Crow et al. I opened it. Half legal threats, half poison. Cease and desist. Defamation. Unauthorized access to confidential files. Below, one line stood out like a snake in grass. Any further contact with Nurse Elena Torres will result in criminal charges. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. Tried again. Static. The power flickered and the room went black. When the light snapped back, the laptop screen glowed ghost white. Another email had arrived. Anonymous. "She's been warned once. She won't talk again." Lightning hit somewhere close. The thunder shook the walls, and for a second, I thought the roof might split. I stared at the screen, knowing this wasn't a bluff. Crow had moved first. He was cutting off witnesses, tightening the noose, one quiet threat at a time. Somewhere out there, Torres was alone, scared, and maybe already silenced. I shut the laptop and just sat there, storm pounding like a war drum outside. Crow wasn't just cleaning his tracks anymore. He was burning the whole trail down. By morning, the storm had passed, but the world still felt ruined. The air smelled of wet dirt and ash. I sat in the dark with the old Remington 870 laid across my knees, barrel cold against my palm. It wasn't the first time I'd stared down that kind of choice. Men like me, we don't break fast, but when we do, we don't rebuild easy either. Earl came in without knocking, like always. He looked at the gun, then at me. "You planning on using that?" "Not sure," I said. "Feels like everything's already been taken." He walked over, slow, steady, took the shotgun from my hands, thumbed the action open. Empty. He dropped the shells in his pocket. "You're not done yet, Frank. Not like this." I didn't answer. The air between us was thick enough to cut. He pulled a photo off the fridge, me and little Eli, my grandson, holding a fishing pole too big for his hands. He set it on the table, right where the gun had been. "You promised him you'd take him fishing this spring," Earl said quietly. "Spring ain't here yet." I looked at the picture. The kid's smile was crooked, missing a tooth, alive in a way I wasn't anymore. The silence stretched. I could hear the wind in the eaves, the house settling after the storm. Finally, I took a breath. Deep, slow, heavy. "No," I said. "Not yet." Earl nodded, lit a cigarette, and passed me one. "Good. Then let's go hunting instead." I didn't smile, but something in me sparked again, small, stubborn, still alive. That morning, I didn't choose peace. I chose war. The courthouse in Dallas County always smelled like dust and old paper. The kind of place where truth didn't walk out unless someone dragged it. Marcy met me on the steps, her coat flapping in the February wind, eyes darting around like we were being watched. "You sure you want to do this?" she asked. "I don't have a choice," I said. "Crow's already burying evidence. I need a search warrant. Today." We walked the hall to Judge Holman's office, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. He was a big man with soft hands, a politician's face, and a judge's patience, until I dropped the files on his desk. Medical records, financial transfers, patient deaths, all tied to Dr. Crow. He flipped through the papers, slow, deliberate. "These are circumstantial." "Then make them official." Holman leaned back, rubbed his temples. "Frank, if I give you a warrant on this, I'm risking my bench. You need more proof." Marcy spoke up. "You give us time, we'll get it. We just need the county seal to open that clinic." The clock on the wall ticked like a countdown. 4:37 p.m. Holman sighed, looked from her to me, then reached into his drawer and pulled out a single form. He signed it with a shaking hand. "This isn't standard," he said quietly. "You've got until 5 o'clock. After that, it disappears like it never existed." My chest tightened. 23 minutes to make it count. We stepped out into the cold, papers tucked under my coat. Marcy looked at me. "You realize if we're late, that order's gone?" "Then we won't be late," I said. That was the first time I realized justice had an expiration time, and I was already running against the clock. The courthouse doors groaned shut behind us, sealing the echo of that ticking clock. Outside, the wind bit sharp, sky bruised purple, snow starting again like the world wanted to erase the evidence. By the time the tires hit the county road, it was 4:41. The drive home was a blur of gray sky and frozen fields. I kept checking the clock on the dashboard like it could slow down for me. 4:41, 4:46. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark. No car, no sound but the wind through the gutters. Linda was gone. I stepped inside, boots echoing off the hardwood. The fire had burned low in the hearth, throwing long shadows across the room. Something about the quiet felt staged, like she'd left it that way on purpose. On the wall above the mantel hung the family photo. Me, her, Tom, little Eli on my shoulders, all smiles frozen in better years. But the frame was crooked. Behind it, I saw the faint outline of a door seam, a safe, built into the wall. I ran my fingers along the edge until I found the keypad, dusty, unused. 6 digits. I tried the obvious ones. Our anniversary, Linda's birthday, nothing. I stared at the photo again, at Eli's toothless grin. His birthday. March 14th, 3/1/14. I punched it in. A beep, but no click. Wrong order, maybe. Or maybe I was still missing something. I stood there, listening to the clock ticking from the kitchen, the same one that had been counting down since the judge's office. Time was running out, for the warrant, for me, for everything. And then it hit me. Eli's name wasn't just a password. He was the last thing Linda still smiled about like it was real. If she built this code around him, then somewhere in this house was proof she thought she could hide. I had 13 minutes left to find it, and for once, the noise in my head wasn't fear. It was purpose. The clock downstairs struck 4:47. Papers still scattered across the table. I grabbed my coat, the warrant folded tight in my pocket. There wasn't time for second thoughts. Torres's message came through just as I started the engine. "Don't take Maine. Go the dirt road behind Miller's Creek. They're watching." My stomach dropped. Watching who? Watching me? Snow was falling again, thick, blinding, the kind that swallowed light. I turned off the highway and took the back road, tires sinking into half-frozen mud. The wipers groaned against the windshield, barely keeping up. Torres was my last link to the truth, and she was risking her job, maybe her life, to meet me. Halfway down the dirt stretch, headlights appeared behind me, too far to be friendly, too steady to be coincidence. I eased off the gas. They slowed too. The back road twisted between frozen fields and bare trees, each turn flashing light on my rearview mirror. The truck behind me followed every move, closing in. The message on my phone buzzed again. 5 minutes out. Blue Honda. If I'm late, don't wait. The headlights vanished for a heartbeat, then came back brighter, closer. I could almost feel the heat from them through the glass. The road forked ahead. I killed my lights and turned left hard, praying the ruts would hide my tracks. For 10 seconds, there was nothing but the roar of my own engine and the sound of blood pounding in my ears. Then the headlights streaked past, going the other way. I pulled over, breath ragged. The phone buzzed one last time. Almost there. Through the snow, a small blue Honda appeared, creeping through the storm. She'd made it, but not for long if they were hunting her this close. That's when I realized this wasn't a meeting anymore. It was an extraction. By the time I got home, the storm had eased, but the house felt wrong, too still, too staged again. Then I heard the soft clink of a mug on the counter. "Frank?" Linda's voice floated from the kitchen, syrupy sweet, like nothing had ever cracked between us. She turned when I stepped in, her face lit by the glow of the stove. "You're freezing. Let me make you some coffee." Her tone was all warmth, but her eyes, they flickered, calculating. "I thought you were in Omaha," I said. "Plans changed," she answered, smile twitching. "You shouldn't be out driving in weather like this. You could get hurt." She moved closer, touched my forehead with the back of her hand. Her skin was ice. "You're burning up," she said softly. "Maybe I should call Dr. Crow just to be safe." That name hit like a punch. "No," I said too quickly. She didn't argue, just turned back to the counter, stirring something on the stove. The kettle hissed. The fire behind her popped too loud, throwing sparks. And then I smelled it. Faint but sharp. Plastic. Burning. Not wood, not metal. Plastic. I looked around. The oven dial was turned up to broil, and something inside was melting, slow, toxic smoke curling from the edges. "What's cooking?" I asked, voice low. She didn't answer right away. Her shoulders stiffened, hand gripping the spoon tighter. Then she smiled, not turning around. "Just warming things up." The smell grew thicker, heavy in my throat. Something was burning all right, maybe dinner, or maybe the last thin layer of trust between us. And when I saw the melted plastic glinting black inside the oven, I knew it wasn't food she'd been trying to destroy. The oven roared when I yanked it open. Heat slapped my face like a live wire. Inside, the metal tray glowed a furious red, and something black and half-melted sat in the center. The burner phone. It hissed and bubbled, plastic dripping like tar, smoke curling up in greasy ropes that stung my eyes. For a second, I froze, just long enough to realize what she was doing. She wasn't cooking. She was erasing. I grabbed the first towel I could find, wrapped it around my hand, and lunged. The fabric seared instantly, the smell of burned cotton mixing with that chemical stench. The phone slipped once, nearly dropped into the flames, but I caught it. Barely. The case was warped, the screen half dead, yet a single red light still blinked under the melted cover. Alive. Just barely. Smoke alarms screamed overhead. The room filled with gray haze. Linda's voice came from the hallway, soft, too calm. "Frank, what are you doing?" I didn't answer. I plunged the phone into a bowl of snow from the porch, steam hissing like a wounded animal. The light blinked once more, then held steady. It had survived. So had I. But the smell of burning plastic stayed in the air, thick and bitter, a reminder that she'd rather torch the truth than face it. That phone wasn't just evidence anymore. It was a heartbeat, and I'd almost watched it die. The next morning, Earl showed up with his old flip phone and that look he got right before doing something reckless. "Play along," he said. Linda was in the kitchen, pretending to read the paper, coffee untouched. Earl dialed a number, hit speaker, and set the phone on the table. "Dr. Crow?" he said, all easy country drawl. "Yeah, it's Earl, Frank's neighbor. Just wanted to check if that, follow-up procedure's been finalized." I felt Linda go still beside me. Her fingers tightened around her mug. Crow's voice came through, calm and professional. "Everything's proceeding as planned." Earl grinned, eyes never leaving her. "Good to hear. So after this last step, it's all tied up, right?" Linda's hand trembled. Her lips parted before her brain caught up. "One more complication and it's done," she blurted. Silence. You could hear the clock ticking, the hum of the fridge, the weight of what she'd just said hanging heavy between us. Earl ended the call, his thumb hovering over the stop button. "Appreciate the confirmation, Doc," he said flatly, then closed the phone with a snap. Linda turned pale. "You tricked me," she whispered. Earl's eyes hardened. "No, ma'am, you tricked him." I stared at her, the woman I'd shared a lifetime with, and for the first time she didn't look ashamed. She looked cornered. And cornered people don't confess. They bite. Snow hammered against the windows when I heard the sirens, low at first, then rising, winding through the hills toward the house. Linda froze mid-step, her eyes darting to the front door, then to me. "Who did you call, Frank?" I didn't answer. The sound grew closer. Tires crunching on the icy drive, doors slamming, muffled radio chatter. Then a sharp knock rattled the air. Sheriff Marcus stepped in, snow still on his shoulders, face carved from granite. He held a paper in his gloved hand, the seal glinting under the porch light. "County warrant," he said. "Issued today. Valid until 5 p.m. I glanced at the old clock on the mantel. 4:57. Linda's breath hitched. "You can't just barge in here." Marcus cut her off. "Ma'am, the court says otherwise." Her voice broke. "Frank, what did you do?" I didn't look at her. I just nodded toward the stairs. "Up there." The deputy moved first, boots thudding on the wood steps. The old house creaked with every step, as if even the walls were holding their breath. Linda took a step back, shaking her head. "Please, don't." Marcus looked at me once, then followed his deputy up. When he reached the landing, he said it loud enough for all of us to hear. "Mr. Garrison, your clock's right. 5 o'clock on the dot. This warrant's alive." I exhaled. The ticking stopped. For once, time had run out on someone else. The safe sat behind the family photo, solid oak with a brass dial dulled by years of dust. Marcus stood behind me, silent. Linda hovered near the wall, pale and trembling, eyes fixed on my hands. I reached for the keypad, fingers stiff from the cold. 6 digits. I'd tried before, failed, but this time I wasn't guessing. Eli's birthday, March 14th, 314. I pressed the sequence slow, steady, like it mattered. The mechanism clicked once, refused, then another click. Sharper, louder, a dry tack. The sound hit like thunder in that quiet room. The safe door shifted half an inch. Linda let out a sound, half gasp, half sob, and dropped to her knees. "Frank, please don't." But I was already pulling it open. Inside was no money, no jewelry, just stacks of paper, neat and deliberate, bank records, land deeds, emails printed out and labeled, and on top of them all, an envelope stamped with Crow's clinic seal. Marcus reached past me, took one look, and his jaw set. "This is it," he said. Linda's voice cracked. "You don't understand. It was supposed to end clean." I turned to her, the weight of 40 years pressing down like a storm. "Yeah," I said quietly. "It did. Just not for you." The clock downstairs chimed 5. The safe was open. And so was the truth. Marcus set the envelope on the table like it might explode. It was manila, still sealed, the postmark from the exact date of my surgery burned into the corner, December 14th. My name typed clean across the front. Inside, a faint smell of disinfectant and old paper. Hospital. Cold. I tore it open with shaking hands. Out slid a small black USB drive, a folded note, and a single-page report printed with Crow's letterhead. The handwriting on the note was scrawled fast. Nurse's pen, anxious. "Keep this safe." He said leverage if he survives. I stared at the words until they blurred. Crow's signature was stamped at the bottom of the report. Post-operative complications, hemorrhage, tissue damage. Except I'd never bled, never even had pain beyond the norm. He'd written my death in advance, just hadn't gotten around to delivering it yet. Marcus leaned in. "You said there was a nurse?" "Elena Torres," I whispered. "She's the one who warned me." "Then this," he lifted the USB carefully with his gloved hand, "might be what gets her, and you, out alive." Linda just stood there, mouth half open, color draining from her face. I could hear my own pulse in my ears. For months, I'd been the ghost of my own life, confused, cornered, disbelieved. Now, right there on that table, sat the proof that everything I'd feared was real. The air felt heavy, thick with old dust and justice finally waking up. The truth wasn't hiding anymore. It was waiting to be played. We plugged the USB into Marcus's laptop. The screen went black for a second. Then a single file appeared. REC 12144 WAV. Marcus double-clicked it. Static. Then a click. A door closing. The faint buzz of surgical lights. And then, Crow's voice. Calm. Measured. Every word like poison wrapped in silk. Patients under. Recorded. Post-op complications. Excessive bleeding. Probable cognitive decline. Add that to his file. A woman's voice. Torres. Hesitant. But doctor, there aren't any complications. There will be, don't worry. Paperwork first, evidence later. If he lives, it's leverage. If he dies, it's procedure. The room went dead silent. You could hear the faint beep of a heart monitor in the background, steady, alive, mine. Then the shuffle of feet. A drawer opening. The sound of something being sealed. An envelope. Give this to his wife. Don't let him see it. That line hit like a hammer, cold and final. Marcus stopped the playback. Nobody spoke for a long moment. The only sound was the wind outside, pushing against the windows. Linda's knees buckled. She reached for the counter, missed, and caught herself on the floor. I just stood there, numb. Months of doubt, humiliation, fear, all crashing into one clear, undeniable moment. Crow wasn't just corrupt. He was clinical about it. Marcus closed the laptop slowly. "That's your smoking gun," he said, and by the sound of it, he just loaded it himself. The war had started in that operating room, and now, finally, I had the bullet. Linda's sobs filled the room, ragged, uneven, nothing like the woman who once laughed over burned toast in that same kitchen. "I just wanted to start over," she whispered, voice breaking like glass. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." Marcus stood behind her, hand resting on his cuffs. "Mrs. Garrison," he said quietly, "you have the right to remain silent." The metal clicked, sharp and final. It was the kind of sound that doesn't echo. It sticks. Linda didn't fight. She didn't plead. She just looked at me, eyes rimmed red, makeup running down her cheeks. "Frank, you have to believe me." I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But belief was the first thing she'd taken from me. Marcus led her toward the door. She turned once like she was trying to memorize the house, the life she'd destroyed. Then she was gone. The siren outside wailed once, short and distant, as the cruiser pulled away down the frozen road. I stood by the window, watching the red and blue lights fade across the white field, until all that was left was snow. Endless, silent, honest snow. The truth had finally come out, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like standing in the wreckage of everything that once mattered. She was gone, and the house felt smaller for it. The night didn't just fall, it settled. The phone rang the next morning. I almost didn't answer. When I did, it was Tom. His voice cracked on the first word. "Dad, I'm sorry." There was a long pause between us, thicker than any distance miles could make. "I saw the reports," he said quietly. "The trial, the recordings. Jesus, Dad. I called you crazy." I could hear him swallow hard. I need time to make it right." Time. That word again. Always time. Always too little. Too late. Outside, wind whistled through the gap in the window frame, the kind of sound that fills a house when there's nothing else left to say. "You were protecting your mother," I finally said. "That's what sons do." He started to speak, but I cut him off gently. "Now let me protect myself." "Dad, please." "I need time, Tom," I said, steady this time. Time to breathe, to think. Silence stretched on the line. Then a whisper. Okay. The call ended. I stood there, phone still in my hand, the kitchen quiet except for the ticking clock. There are wounds that bleed, and there are wounds that wait. That morning, both of us were bleeding in silence, but at least now, the bleeding was honest. When Elena Torres finally stepped forward, the whole town seemed to hold its breath. She arrived at the sheriff's office wearing the same pale blue scrubs she'd been hiding behind for months, creased, tired, human. Her voice was soft at first, the kind you had to lean in to hear. "He made me write it," she said. "Every word in those reports. He said it was just insurance, in case the patient doesn't make it." Marcus kept his pen steady, eyes on her. "And you knew it was false?" She nodded. "We all did. But he controlled the schedules, the recommendations, the paychecks. You crossed him, you were out." She set a small black notebook on the table. The edges were bent, ink smudged, pages filled with dates, procedures, initials. A second set of recordings she'd made in secret. "My son's 7, she whispered. "I kept it because I thought someday he'd need to know I wasn't part of it. Not really." Her hands shook when she slid the notebook across. "I'm done being scared. For the first time since this started, I saw courage in its rawest form. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, deliberate truth." Marcus looked at her, jaw tight. "You just became our key witness, Ms. Torres." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. "Then let's make sure none of them get away with it." And in that moment, redemption didn't look like forgiveness. It looked like finally saying what should have been said all along. That night, the sheriff's office didn't sleep. The hallway smelled of burnt coffee and printer ink, evidence piling higher than courage. By sunrise, Marcus had the district attorney on the line. Files were spread across the conference table, Elena's notes, Crow's fake reports, the USB audio, even death certificates printed on county letterhead. Each document was a piece of the same machine, clean, efficient, murderous. The DA's voice crackled through the speakerphone. "You're telling me 15 deaths line up with Crow's procedures?" Marcus flipped through a chart. "Every one, each marked as post-op complications. Every one of them transferred property to Redfield Development within 30 days. The DA swore under his breath. "That's not coincidence. That's organized." On the big screen, the data lit up in patterns. Dates, dollar amounts, parcel IDs, all converging like arteries around a single name. Dr. Randall Crow. Marcy sat beside Marcus, scrolling through the electronic medical records she'd pulled from the clinic servers. "Look here," she said, tapping the screen. "Same drugs ordered in every case, same nurse signature, even the same timestamp window, between midnight and 4 a.m. Marcus leaned back. "That's when the complications always happened." The DA's tone hardened. "You get me a warrant for his lab and storage facility by noon. I'll have the feds looped in before sundown." I stood in the doorway, watching the pieces lock into place. Months of fear, shame, and confusion turning into something cold and sharp. Proof. For the first time, the picture was complete. It wasn't madness. It was murder, mapped out like a business plan. 2 days later, the town woke up to the wrong headline. The TV was still on from the night before, volume low, static humming through the quiet house. I didn't mean to look, but there he was, Dr. Randall Crow, smiling in his white coat, silver scissors glinting as he cut the ribbon on a new community wellness center. The headline read, "Local Hero Expands Rural Health Initiative." Applause filled the screen, hands clapping, cameras flashing. I stood frozen, coffee cooling in my hand. Then Marcus's laptop chimed. The audio file, REC1214.wav, played again, his voice leaking into the room like a ghost. If he lives, it's leverage. If he dies, it's procedure. Crow's televised smile froze mid-frame, eyes bright, teeth perfect. The contrast hit like a gut punch. The saint on screen, the devil in my ears. Reporters praised his dedication to small-town care, the same care that killed 15 men and left their widows selling land for pennies. My phone buzzed. One after another, texts, missed calls, voicemails, neighbors, reporters, even the Reverend. They'd heard it. The recording had leaked. Through the static, the newscaster's voice wavered. Breaking story. Allegations surface against Dr. Randall Crowe. The applause on TV died mid-clap. His smile turned into something almost human. Caught. I turned the volume down, but the sound of his confession stayed, circling the room like smoke that wouldn't leave. The man everyone called a savior had finally been seen for what he was, a predator in plain sight. By noon, the warrant was signed. The district attorney's tone left no room for hesitation. "Get him," he told Marcus, "and make sure it's on camera." The convoy rolled down the icy street, tires grinding against the frozen pavement. 3 cruisers, 1 unmarked SUV, lights silent but flashing blue against the gray sky. Crowe's clinic stood gleaming at the edge of town, all glass and metal, sterile and proud. He was waiting for them, white coat pressed, stethoscope draped like a priest's collar. Marcus stepped inside first, badge visible, voice steady. "Dr. Randall Crowe, you're under arrest for medical fraud, obstruction of justice, and multiple counts of homicide." Crowe didn't flinch. He smiled faintly, like it was all a misunderstanding. "You must be mistaken," he said. "I've healed half this town." The DA's task force fanned out, 1 officer at each door, another filming on body cam. Crowe turned to the mirrored wall, his favorite vanity, the one that faced the waiting room. In the reflection, he watched himself as Marcus read his rights. The cuffs clicked shut. His smile flickered. The body cam light blinked red, recording every second, the surgeon framed in glass, bound by his own reflection. Outside, the crowd had gathered, phones out, faces pale. The man they'd trusted with their lives was being walked out in handcuffs, snowflakes landing on his perfect white coat. He looked up once, eyes meeting mine through the window. Still calm, still calculating. Then he was gone. For months, I'd been the one on the table. Now it was him, and the operating room was justice. The courtroom smelled like old wood and nerves. Every sound carried, every shuffle, every cough, every heartbeat trying not to be heard. I sat in the front row, suit stiff, palms damp. Julia sat beside me, her hand gripping mine tight enough to ground me. On the witness stand, Nurse Torres looked small under the fluorescent light, her blue uniform a reminder of the life she'd risked to tell the truth. The defense lawyer's voice dripped with confidence. Dr. Crowe's words were taken out of context. Medical terminology can sound alarming to the untrained ear. He said untrained ear like it meant stupid farmer. But then Marcus cued the audio. The speakers hissed once, and there it was, the voice that had haunted my nights. If he lives, it's leverage. If he dies, it's procedure. No jargon, no ambiguity, just evil dressed in professionalism. The courtroom went still. Even the lawyer stopped pretending. Torres lifted her chin, eyes wet but steady. "Those were his words," she said, "and I wrote what he told me to write." The prosecutor nodded to the jury. "And what happened to those patients, Ms. Torres?" She took a breath that seemed to last a lifetime. "They died." Julia squeezed my hand. Across the aisle, Crowe stared straight ahead, jaw tight, eyes empty. The jury foreman looked up from his notes, meeting the judge's eyes. And then he nodded. Slow, deliberate, final. The room didn't cheer. It didn't need to. The sound of truth landing was loud enough. A week later, I sat in the same courtroom, but the air felt different, lighter somehow, though not cleaner. This time, it wasn't Crowe they brought in. It was Linda. She looked smaller in the orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back, makeup gone. The woman who once planned every detail of my life now couldn't meet my eyes. The judge read her plea deal, cooperation, full testimony against Crowe and his partners, 5 years in state prison, parole eligible in 2. She nodded once, voice trembling. "I understand." The prosecutor thanked her. The system loves redemption almost as much as guilt, but I didn't feel redeemed. When it was over, she turned slightly, as if to find me in the crowd. For a heartbeat, our eyes met. Hers full of apology, mine empty of anything that could answer it. She mouthed something, "I'm sorry," but it didn't land anywhere. I looked down at my boots. Mud dried along the seams, from the same field my father plowed and I nearly lost. That land was still mine, but it didn't feel like victory. Justice had been served. The headlines said so. But sitting there in that cold wooden pew, I didn't feel like the man who'd won. I felt like the man who'd survived the wreckage of his own life. Some battles don't end with applause. They end with silence, and the long work of learning how to breathe again. By March, the snow was gone, leaving behind the soft hush of wet earth. For the first time in months, I woke to silence that didn't sound like dread. The fields stretched wide and dark under the pale spring sun, lines of soil waiting for seed. When I knelt, the ground gave a little under my hand, cold, forgiving. Tiny green shoots were already pushing through, stubborn and alive. Corn, the same kind my father planted when I was Eli's age. The water rights had finally gone through. Marcy called to tell me herself. "You're clear, Frank. The land's yours again. Every drop." I walked out with the hose that afternoon, turned the spigot, and listened to the water hiss across the furrows. The smell rose immediately: mud, roots, and hope. 2 Aggie students from the university were helping for the season, both bright-eyed, too young to know what loss smells like. I pointed out over the rows, showing them how the land rolled with the sun, how to read the soil's mood. "See that pale spot?" I said. "Too much clay. Let it breathe." They nodded, taking notes, as if I was teaching more than farming. Maybe I was. For the first time since all this began, I didn't feel haunted, just grounded. The earth didn't judge, didn't care about trials or betrayal. It only asked for water, light, and a little patience. When I looked out over the fields, I swear I could feel it answer back. The land still lived, and so did I. Tom's truck pulled into the drive one Saturday morning, tires crunching the gravel like old music. The passenger door flew open before the engine even stopped, and Eli jumped out. New boots, too big, splashing straight into the mud puddle by the gate. He laughed like it was the best sound in the world, and maybe it was. Tom climbed out slower, watching me from under his cap. "He's been talking about the farm non-stop," he said. "Figured it was time." "Yeah," I said, smiling a little. "It's time." Eli ran ahead, crouched by the rows, fingers sinking into the dark soil. "It's cold, Grandpa." "It's alive," I said. "Feel it?" He nodded, dirt streaked across his palms, grin wide as the horizon. Tom stood beside me, arms crossed, eyes scanning the land the way I used to, half worry, half wonder. "Never thought I'd see this place green again," he murmured. "Me neither," I said. "But the land's got its own language. You just have to listen." He looked at me, waiting. "It talks," I said quietly, "just not in words. It tells you when it's hurt, when it's healing, and when it's ready to forgive." The wind picked up, carrying the smell of tilled soil and young corn. Sunlight cut through the birch trees at the edge of the field, golden and clean. Tom exhaled, something between a sigh and a prayer. Eli laughed again, chasing a crow that wouldn't be caught. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something close to peace. The land was speaking again, and this time, I was finally listening. The sun was setting slow over the fields. The sky poured out in gold and ash. The rows of young corn shimmered like threads catching fire, each one whispering its quiet promise. I stood by the fence post, the same one my father drove into the earth 50 years ago, and took a picture with my phone. The screen lit my hands in that soft evening glow. Eli's boot prints scattered through the mud, Tom's shadow stretching long beside mine. I typed 3 words beneath the photo and sent it to him. "Welcome home, son." No reply came, and none was needed. The air had that kind of silence that isn't empty. It's full, holding everything you've lost and somehow made peace with. The wind moved through the corn like a choir, low and steady, carrying the smell of earth and rain. Somewhere far off, the church bell rang 6 times, slow and kind, the sound folding into the evening like prayer. I leaned against the fence, hands deep in my jacket, feeling the hum of life beneath me, the soil breathing, the roots waking, the world turning. There was no audience, no applause, no victory march. Just a man, a field, and the truth he'd finally earned the right to keep. I looked out at the last of the sun and whispered to no one, "Today, the land's enough. Tomorrow, I plant." And for the first time, that promise felt real.